Football Manager has had some updates recently, upgrading some Wonderkids and bringing some brand new ones to the game. So I've gone through the data and I've picked out an 11-man squad of players aged 17 and under at the start of the game that Football Manager doesn't want you to know about. Our goalkeeper is Murray Johnson from Hibs. The 17-year-old has some really solid baseline attributes, as well as some incredible determination. I made myself the manager of Man City while scouting out these Wonderkids, partly so I could compare them to Man City players. And compared to Ederson, Murray actually looks pretty decent. You can see he's shaping up to be a very similar player to Ederson. His shot stopping and aerial ability are almost on par. And as his eccentricity is way lower, it means he's less likely to do weird and odd things on the pitch. It's unlikely his distribution is ever going to be on par, but Ederson is out of this world when it comes to distributing. As for potential ability, well, all of these players have got a potential ability range. Because they're so young and no one really knows exactly how good they're going to be, including Football Manager, they get given a potential ability range. Every save file that you load up, the players are given an exact potential ability from between these two numbers. So in Murray Johnson's case, his potential ability is between 130 and 160. So every time you load a save file up, his potential ability is going to be somewhere between 130 and 160. So sometimes you get quite lucky and he's very good, and other times you might be a bit unlucky and he's not quite as good. But even at his lowest of 130, that's still a very top quality championship player, and at his highest at 160, it makes him one of the best goalkeepers in the game. But if you want to get your hands on him, you're going to have to wait, as he's just signed a new contract at Hibs, but when he does want to move, it's only going to cost you £2 to £4 million. Our right back is a chap called Xavi from Levante. The 17-year-old has some solid physical attributes to build a foundation from, as well as some great tackling and decent crossing. Comparing him to Kyle Walker, you can see he's basically a younger version of Walker. And with a potential ability range of 130 to 160, at the upper end of that, you could get a player who is just as good as Kyle Walker. The best part is he has a minimum fee release clause of £375,000 and a wage of just £3,000 to £4,000 per week, which makes him one of the most affordable players on this list. Our first centre-back is going to be a player that I think we're all going to know in about 5 years' time, which is a good thing for me because right now I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Bichiabu is already a complete centre-back at just 17 years old, so it's wild to think that he could improve to his potential ability range of 150 to 180. He's tall, superb in the air, and mentally magnificent for 17 years old, but there is one thing that lets him down, and that is his pace. But he's already looking like he could take on Aymeric Laporte in a few areas, but I worry that his lack of pace could let him down. And despite being a PSG player, he's not impossible to get, with his agent quoting 15 to 17 million and up to £50,000 a week in wages. Our next centre-back is a bit more affordable in Ethan Butera, but he is a lot more of the Lisandro Martinez style defender. Despite that, he's got some terrific attributes where they matter and could quite easily be retrained as a CDM or even a centre midfielder. And at just 16 years old, he has a lot of room to grow into his 140 to 170 potential ability range, and is looking like he could be a very similar player to Laporte, minus the aerial ability. There's even some areas where he's better than Bichiabu, but you can grab him for £5 to £7 million less than the PSG man. To round off the back line, at left back we have Jorel Hato from Ajax. For 16 years old, he's got some well-rounded physicals, strong mentals and decent technicals. As a result, he's better in some areas already than João Cancelo, who does count for this video as he is technically still a Man City player. But he certainly looks on the surface to be more of a fullback than a wing-back. But with a potential range of 130 to 160, you could probably shape him into however you want him to play and fit in your team, especially when at most he costs £2.7 million. Moving into the midfield now, and when I say a young attacker from Palmeiras, you're all going to shout at me, Endrick. Well, actually, there's another guy there who could be just as good. This is Luis Guilherme, who I think could be utilised as a great inside forward with his superb finishing for 16 years old. With time, the composure will improve and he could become a serial goal scorer. I've compared him to Bernardo Silva, who is one of the best players in the game at 174 current ability. But Lewis could almost get there as his potential ability range is 140 to 170. But he won't come cheap. priced at 9 to 13 million pounds. Our first centre mid is another player's name that I would probably butcher, so we'll just stick to his first name of Assam. The 16-year-old prospect from Schalke has a potential ability range of 140 to 170 and is already incredibly well-rounded with a great in-game personality of resolute. Now, I have gone and compared him to Kevin De Bruyne, which is a little bit harsh as they're probably suited to different styles of play, and Kevin De Bruyne is better than Assam can ever get with his potential ability range of just 140 to 170, although 170 would still make him one of the best players in the game. But when he's available for 1.2 to 2.5 million pounds, it feels like an absolute steal. Our other centre mid is Andre Oliveira from Porto. Now, his attributes aren't as strong as the previous player, but Andre is more of a playmaker, shown by his high levels of passing, technique and vision for a 16-year-old. I think he's a lot more of a Kevin De Bruyne type player, and together Andre and Hassan could become a dynamic duo in the midfield, with Porto basically wanting to give him away, pricing him under £1 million. As for the left wing, we're heading over to Mexico. Herberto Guardo is a natural winger with his crossing and dribbling ability. Increases pace and acceleration, and you've got a danger man on the left-hand side with a potential ability range of 140 to 170. I've compared him to Jack Grealish, and I think him and Jack could be very similar players, with Herberto potentially going on to be a better player than Jack. His agent isn't that helpful though, saying he'd be available for £420,000 or maybe 10 times more expensive than that at 4.2 million. But the wage demands aren't too outrageous for a star 17-year-old. Our first striker is a name that English fans are getting very used to at the moment. It's of course Brighton's Evan Ferguson. He's had some really nice upgrades in the most recent update, but the game seems to think his best role is a target forward. But with his amazing finishing, composure and decisions, he's equally as good as an advanced forward, pressing forward or complete forward. With a potential ability range of 150 to 180, he won't be quite as good as Haaland. But if you can't get Norwegian, Ferguson is certainly going to develop into a very similar player, if you can afford the 21 to 32 million pounds Brighton want for him. But the second striker and final player on this list was recently named in the Next Gen Elite 9, which I'm going to have a bunch of YouTube shorts coming out about recently, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on those videos. Matthias Tell is who Bayern Munich will be hoping is the next Lewandowski. At 17 years old, his physicals are superb and his mentals are great as well. If you can improve the goal-scoring attributes like finishing and composure, you have a top striker on your hands. Plus, his potentiality range is 150 to 180, so he could easily become one of the best players in the game. Comparing him to Haaland, he has the makings of a great striker heart, and is perhaps a little more well-rounded than Evan Ferguson is. But that ability comes at a cost. 31 to 47 million. Bayern do not want to let this guy leave the club. But they are 11 of my favourite Wonderkids Football Manager doesn't want you to know about. Let me know in the comment section down below if you end up signing any of them. In the meantime, I took Mohamed Salah's current ability to 1 out of 200, and then played through pre-season with him with every goal he scores an upgrade to try and get him to win the ultimate prize in football. Check it out.